Good evening, everyone. How's my friends doing in the Dixie Belle world? I'm Aaron here in the Bowtie Treasure Studio. Let me give you a little bit of background about our project. Tonight I'm going to be painting this antique dresser. I believe we would put this in the East Lake era. Usually you can tell that by the hand carving. They're usually carved into the items. And this is a simple version. Let me show you a more complicated one. This piece here is also East Lake. You can see it has the glove boxes and also the mirror. And this one I painted with caviar, but the same technique I did on that, I'm going to do on this one. In fact, I went back, which is really nice to do, to go back and watch my previous videos. I verbally said, I think it'd look good in the navy. And I'm like, interesting. I thought, well, the funny thing is I just finished painting this jewelry box and I used in the navy. And I thought, well, that would totally work. It's a nice dark blue. This has a satin top coat on it. So this is the color look that I'm going with. So it's a dark, dark blue. And I think it'd be a great color for this piece. One, it keeps it different from the last one I did. And two, it just is a nice dark, it's rich, it'll complement the wood really well. So tonight I'm going to be using in the navy on this antique dresser. I think this will be very fitting and I'm excited about getting started with you. Let me give you a little bit of background too. I'm going to pull you in real quick. I put on here these little, I bought these on Amazon. These are little kind of metal full keyholes. There was nothing there. So I wanted to put something a little decorative. So I have nailed those in there and I put a little bit of in the navy there. You're going to see tonight that when we put the chalk paint down, that if you work fairly quickly to wipe it off. But I wanted to go ahead and put a little blue on there so I didn't totally wipe that off. I might come back with some gilding wax, maybe gold, we'll see copper. The top one had just a hole, and if you look at a lot of the East Lake pieces, that's a lot harder. A lot of the keyholes are. But I filled that in with some wood filler and then I put a keyhole there as well. So that's what you're seeing there. This piece has been well used meaning dents, scratches, missing pieces. So it's really nice to pick a finish that complements the condition of the piece. And the wet distressing, the key word being distressing, complements all that distressing and all that chippingness that's going on. So we're going to let it facilitate and work to our favor, so I'm excited about that. If you have any questions, pop those into the comments section. I always go back afterwards and kind of read through all those comments and see what I've missed. Because once I get going, I'm pretty much full-fledged into it. What you're going to need is a good-sized brush because you want to move quickly. I also have a couple rags that I just got wet and are squeezed out, so they're damp, I guess. The next thing that you want to do, and if you want to, by the way, see the piece I just showcased a minute ago, on my YouTube channel, just search for wet distressing. I believe I have a playlist called wet distressing, and you can watch the demonstration of that one as well. It had a lot more details than this one does, but I think it'll still look good. All right, here's the premise. While I get started, is you just want to get the paint on there and let it dry. You don't want it to be super wet. So by the time that I paint this side and move on to the other, and I'll go to the front or maybe even the other side, it doesn't really matter. Give this first coat some time to dry. And I mean dry as in like dry to the touch, not cured, don't wait overnight. The longer it dries, the harder it will be to wipe off. And that's again another reason why I painted the keyhole hardware yesterday, is because I want it to be a little bit more cured, because I didn't really want to wipe all that off because I did use some wood filler. It was different color. I don't want that to be wiped off. I want to cover that up. So it's very important that you give this a chance to just set for a few minutes. If you don't want it to stick at all, then just wipe it right off, but that really kind of defeats the purpose. I do not want to wipe all of it off. It's not a paint removal process, it's distressing. Once in a while you'll see some light areas, and that's just because there's chipping and scratches. I don't know where, who knows, with a piece that's over 100 years old, what all was done, how it was used. So you're just being liberal here. Liberal as in, we're quick. I'm not trying to cover all of it up because that's not, you're missing the point if you go that far. So let's work on the front, and we will eventually come back to the side while it dries. If you're working on a really small piece, you could take a heat gun to it or an air dryer and just dry it to touch. That's really all you're looking for. So that's why this piece is so forgiving and easy to work with, or this finish that is, because you don't have to be perfect at it. One of the things I had to do on this project is I actually took the hardware off, applied some wood glue, and put them back on, because when I bought it, and when I show you the before picture, when I get this all done, a lot of the hardware was spinning. It's just on there with one screw. It's not a very reliable method, so I felt a little bit of glue would help. And so now they're nice and secure, and they're not going to spin on for the next person. So you see, I'm just kind of going side to side. Just get it on there. You could even just, if you didn't want to wet distress it, you could just leave the paint and not even distress it. There's just something about this, the look of the dark with the paint coming through. It's a nice, refreshing look. As far as an aged finish, I think I used the word aged. So here, I'm not trying to get the paint in all the grooves, just kind of casually get it in there. It's going to look more weathered and worn when you can do that. So when you have a piece of furniture that's seen a few years and it's kind of beat up, I doubt you're probably going to charge in there and start doing a fancy finish like blending or something like that. You're looking for something that has a little bit more age to it. So that's what we're doing. So just move quickly. The fun part is distressing it. So get to that part as fast as you can, right? I'm using the Dixie Belle's mini brush. It's a perfect brush for large flat surfaces like dresser fronts and tops. The color looks great on this piece. I agree with it, Teresa Lee. And you know, I really would not have thought about in the navy if it wasn't for the fact that I even suggested in my video. So sometimes you come up with good ideas and you just put them off for another piece, right? And that's what I'm doing here. Once in a while, I'll talk about color theory a lot. When I say color theory, just maybe color harmony. The color of the wood is orange, and it's a complement to blue. That's why these colors work so well, is they complement each other on the color wheel. Okay. I think for the sake of moving forward, let's just go ahead and finish painting it. The other side's not going to be so done that I can't still work with it. And, I mean, we're only live 16 minutes and we're more than halfway done painting it. You can see the pace that I'm working, just nice, steady. You do not have to work this fast. If you had to, paint slower, do one section at a time, wipe it off, do another section. You do need time for it to dry to the touch, or you're just going to be wiping off really wet paint. And I don't think it'll feel as distressed. I'm not putting a ton of paint on my brush. Pretty much just like that, just maybe a 1/4 inch into the brush and spread that out. You put too much paint down and you can't really create a nice smooth finish. You shouldn't have a lot of heavy brush strokes if you don't use too much paint. So what I'll do is I'll leave the top for now. In fact, you could literally leave the top, but I'll save that for either off camera or for as we have time, because it's going to be harder to demonstrate. But I'll just put that to the side for now. I'll put my brush in a rag just to keep it kind of wet. All right. Kristen, you're right. This technique would be very nice. So let's demonstrate this so you can see there's still a few areas that are wet, and a lot of it's just working its way out. I don't see that the side is going to need a lot of distressing because it's flat. But the other option I can do is I could bring out my heat gun and work on that. But let me just show you a few highlighted areas. So again, I've just got my rag, and I'm just looking for natural wear spots and also edges. Edges are really good places to catch. This is going to be a total you decision as far as how much you distress and remove, okay? And you can see the rag's gonna get built up. Let me bring in and just show you what I just did. So that's kind of the effect you're going for. And just let some paint in some spots and paint not in others. And I like to, so in this situation, I'm going to catch the edge, this whole framed panel. I definitely want to catch some of the frame. You're going to use your fingers, lay it flat, and then you just need to determine, so you can see some of the areas that are there. If you want to get some of the bigger areas, and just leave it kind of worn. I'm not putting a ton of pressure on it. I don't really have to because the paint is really not super dry. There are some wet spots still, and again, I probably am going a little faster than I have to. If you feel like you're just smearing paint, it's probably because you got too much paint. Just move to another area on your rag and give it another wipe. It's optional if you want to use a mister bottle. I'm not sure if that would help at all. I mean, we just painted this side just not long ago. So just kind of hit areas here and there, and it's going to look really nice and aged. So here's the really fun part, and that is the hardware. And this is one of the reasons why I love this technique, is I really want to get all this hand-carved decorative areas to showcase. So probably just highlight, or just really feel like I need to bring you all in here. I'm going to drop you down just a little bit, so give me 1 second. I'll get you down to hardware level, okay? That should help better. Jerry says she loves the blue and the distressing. See? So it's just kind of a control. And one thing I really like about this too, friends, is that I'm not distressing the actual finish of the wood. All I'm doing is revealing the wood that's there. And that's the look we're going for, right? If you want, you could try and hit some of the edges of the wood. If you feel like you mess an area up, just put some more paint on. Right now, all I'm doing is literally just kind of lightly rubbing some of the paint off without, if I rub too hard, I'm going straight down. I just want it to look kind of worn, not all the way revealed. And remember, I painted this 2 coats, the key, and that's fine because there's some areas I don't want to. I got too much paint on that part. So I'm very tempted to get my heat gun out because it would allow for me to escalate the drying time, because there still is a decent amount of wet paint on here, but we'll just wipe it off. So I want to hit a lot of these carved details. I was thinking yesterday or this week while I was working on this, how someone probably felt 100 years ago when they got a hand-carved hardware dresser. It probably was a super desirable look. And of course, I'm sure there was the elegant version or the more prestigious version versus the commoner version. Like the one I showed you that I did the one I showed you earlier was a little bit more of an upscale look, more decorative pieces. And this one's a little bit more common. In fact, if you unscrew and take the hardware off, it's just a simple cabinet. The hardware really is the reason why I bought it. So why would you want to not do it? Some people might say, well, change the hardware, then why did you buy the dresser? You could have just gone to IKEA, right? For occasional use. So here we are on the other side. Go back a little bit. You can still see some of the paint's wet. We won't let that stop us. Without the hardware, in fact, when I had it off, it was just a basic cabinet. It had no personality. Now you have something with the hardware on there. You have something to actually, for the most part, date the piece. You know it's East Lake era, Victorian. So basically we're talking, 1880, 1910, 1920, something in that era. I'm just actually going to leave for now the cabinet top unpainted, and I'll work on that later on. It might even be nice just to leave it. The top's not in bad shape. It does have, you can see a chip here, so that's missing, and it doesn't have a ton of scratches, so it works out pretty well overall. I think it's okay. And I'll still think about the hardware. I think it could use a little accent on it, and we'll just let that dry a little bit and we'll see how that goes. Those are kind of decisions I like to say I'll sleep on it. So what do y'all think? Good look? Okay, so what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna take the top drawer out. Let's talk about stenciling the side. I'm gonna set it on the ground. So let me feature for you the Enchanted Garden stencil. You can see this on Dixie Belle's website. And basically it's a repeating pattern stencil. You may have seen it featured before. And I went ahead and took out the part I want to use. It comes in 4 sections, and you can see that there's even guides to kind of help you keep it. And what drew me to this one was because of the leaf pattern on the hardware. I thought this kind of looked nice. It complemented the leaves. I looked at several stencils sets that I have, and I thought, well, this one really captured the essence of the piece. So here's the challenge I have. I have this pattern. What I don't want to do is have a straight line here towards the middle of the drawer. I'm a big fan of kind of fading it out, and so I think that would work really well. And I still want to use the In the Navy color that we've been featuring already. So that's kind of where we're at. Maybe that'll be a better view. It's always interesting when you have a stencil to figure out what would be the best tool to apply the paint. There's a lot of things like the thingamajig. You can use a brush, there's just so many options available to you. I think what I'd like to do is just for kicks, is use Dixie Belle's new foam brushes. So let me just, this is the medium size. This is what I want right there. All right, so we're gonna just go into that paint a little bit. This is something you want to have a little bit more plan because you're going straight on the wood. And I don't know if you noticed, but I didn't use a lot of paint. As I mentioned a while ago, maybe just an 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch of paint on the brush. These brushes are great for top coat. They're great for this, as we were looking, this. They're just a soft foam. And this is allowing me to get a smooth finish. We would say brush-free finish. And it's not creating a lot of pressure on the stencil that would lift the stencil up. So I'm just kind of, and I'm pushing it in some areas and not at others. Again, I'm just kind of feeling my way out on this one a little bit. And I think what I'd like to do, we're just going to take a look at it. So I'm not going to put any more paint on my brush. I'm going to use the word feather. Just going to feather this pattern out and just see how it looks. Remember we taped it off? So I want it just to kind of look like it's slowly fading out. So there's hardly any paint on here. Almost looks like I burned it. Light pressure. Let's take a look. So there's some areas that and then I'm also going to later on, I will distress this. So I'll take a little bit of sandpaper and just wear this out. I don't want it to be clean and crisp. So that, I think, works really well from the front to the side. But that soft fade worked out really well. You can see some areas where I put too much paint, but again, not really worried about that. I like to stress, I'm not going for perfection on this one. This is a 100-year-old dresser that's been beat up by 15 kids. And so this needs to look worn. So when I'm done, a lot of those things that you might consider, say, are imperfect will look imperfect, and that's what we want. Let's see if we can work sideways. Test errand day, how about that? Okay. And ease them out a little bit. So this is the first time we had it on the ground. This one we'll do sideways. Okay, so this one's going to want to, you see how that's the gravity was working for me in this situation. But that's okay. It's stump errand day. Okay, so we're just going to work this out. Because maybe you can't put it on the ground. I'm going to be a little bit more cautious with paint this time. You remember the first one? I had a little bit extra paint, but you have to practice. You have to do these things enough to know, okay, that pressure doesn't work, that tool doesn't work, that utensil isn't ideal, that much paint's not well, or my paint's too thick. So you just have to, over time you get enough experience and you say, okay, go in this with a light hand, or hey, guess what? You can solve this problem by sanding, or but if you're an artist, furniture artist, and you like a challenge, then you're always trying new things. And it becomes kind of like you need that extra bit of adventure in your project. And that's kind of what I like to do. So I'm not going to go back into the paint again. We're going to start spreading this paint that I already have out. Just kind of, by now my stencil's kind of stuck by friction. Okay, so here we are. We're going to start using just the paint that we have. Just looking for some areas, and then we'll start. If you want to go up and down, side to side. Very light pressure right now, okay? I'm just almost like dry blending right now. I think the other side's worked out a little bit better, but I'm still creating that fade that I like. And then we'll still wet distress it. Okay. So it isn't a requirement, of course, that you fade that out, but I thought that would be a nice look. I mean, you can even see the original stain still dripping down the side, so I think that's going to work out well. Let me just move some of the extra paint that got on this lip. I think everything would be fine if I just paint this whole lip. So if we put that in there just to take a look at it, there's a good chance that even this drawer even drags along the side. And that's fine, because I'm going to distress this. It's all going to work together. So we just created that finish in not much time at all. It's only been maybe 35 minutes, not bad. And still debatable. I think it kind of looks cool not to paint the top. What do y'all think? Leave me a comment. I'd love to know your thoughts on that. And if you're watching on replay, that's always great to know. So next step will be I'll pull this back out. We'll sand the sides, give it a little distressing. But overall, I think that looks really good. So the next time that you see this piece, it'll be staged, looking great, nice and handsome, beautiful little piece, and transformed in no time, right before your eyes. For Aaron, myself, here in the Bowtie Treasure Studio, and thank you, Dixie Belle, for the opportunity. Hope you all enjoyed this tonight. Be sure to pass it on. Let some friends know about this cool technique. Thank you for watching tonight. Do something creative. We'll talk to you later. See you.
That's the end of the show. Make sure you subscribe and ring the bell before you go. Bye.